Howdy, shipmate. Your old pal Max here, alias Whiskey Dick Calhoun, also known as the Captain. Just wanted to get at you up top and let you know that we had some gremlins with this one. And so the audio got kind of funky and the conversation might seem kind of disjointed and it skips in a couple places. But we talked about some stuff that we like talking about, and maybe even Fake Dom 69 will get some good information out of this. And also, we're not experts. We just talk about stuff from our own experience. Thanks for sticking with us.
No, we're not.
Why are you so proud of yourself right now?
It was like one of those useless YouTube comments that just say first.
Oh, yeah. Is that still a thing? People do it still first?
Oh my gosh.
They usually do like 9, and it says first.
First. How's everybody doing this morning?
Well,
how are you doing?
I'm peppy.
Yes, you are.
That B12 sublingual tablet did me right.
Cool.
And coconut water. I'm on top of the world this morning. I'm hydrated. I've got some vitamins.
You're all
You know me.
You're all hepped up on Goofenthal.
What is that from?
King of the Hill.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was a horrible Hank Hill.
You're a horrible Hank Hill.
damn it, Bobby.
That was a better Hank Hill. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's the only thing that I can say, though.
Oh. Okay, fair. What are we talking about first? Are we talking about parties first? We didn't decide that, did we?
Not really.
It seemed like you decided by fiat that that's what we were doing.
I was just making a suggestion. Y'all are welcome
I like
to.
a small car.
Y'all are welcome to assert yourselves.
Fix it again, Tony. Isn't that what people used to say fiat stood for?
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but it's appropriate, yeah.
I think this is the loudest I've ever seen Eric speak on this podcast.
Yes. Speak again, Eric.
Stop looking at the screen.
Speak again.
No, I'm self-conscious about it.
Oh.
No, you're doing
There
a good
goes
job.
our ASMR listeners.
I think that the entirety of the ASMR community on YouTube is just like dudes jacking it to hot girls going,
Yeah, obviously.
tippy tappy.
That's the whole thing,
Okay.
obviously.
All right, stop whispering into the microphone.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
This isn't the banter we asked for.
But it's the
But it's
banter
the
we
banter we
needed
deserve.
or deserve.
You only adopted the banner, Batman.
That
I was
was-
born in it.
That was a good that guy.
Jimmy
Too
Stewart?
Mary. That's my Jimmy
Read
Stewart.
old Mr. Potter. I don't know. I was going for Bane.
The Batman movie.
Yeah,
Do that guy.
but I was trying.
A Harry Potter thing? What?
God damn it!
I'm really lost right now.
Welcome back.
Mr. Cotter. We've had that would be the
that
second.
that was not great.
We have
that
that's
was not
that's
a great
the,
moment of the toxic
Are you
monogamy episode.
That I hate the toxic monogamy episode. We all know that I hate the toxic monogamy episode. I'm the one who had to edit it. I still have to listen to it again to do the show notes, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm trying to do it in 15 minutes at a time so that I don't go insane. I don't know why I hate that episode so much. I just do. I think it came together fine, but I hate it.
Well, good. Let's convince all of the listeners to hate it too.
Well, you should listen
She's
to.
editing.
You should listen to the
I
episode,
have.
which is episode 7.
Which I have.
No, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to our listeners now.
Edit this out.
No.
I was
Okay, we get to
quoting
talk
Mandy
about only
Patinkin.
things we like.
Oh, we're only talking about things we like? Oh, that's a short list. I like pumpkins. I like pumpkins and round things and octopodes.
Octopodes nuts.
Cephalopods.
I like cephalopods.
Things that are very small.
I like my dog. I like very tiny
Very small
things.
rocks.
There was a fancy necklace at the party last
The
night.
glass octopodes necklace. Yes. Yeah. There was a good, I had fun at the party. I really enjoyed myself. It's been a while since I've been to a community party.
That was a smooth segue.
That was a really great transition. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been to a community party. Do y'all want to speak about parties this morning? We've got some questions from listeners. Well, one listener, Jen, our Patreon supporter.
Yay,
we love you, Jen. Jenny sent us a little list of questions about like how to get ready for parties and stuff. So let's talk about parties this morning, shall
Sounds
we?
good.
Welcome to the Pod Cultcast, where we talk about life, love, learning, and libido, and share our journey through polyamory and kink. I'm Hannah.
I'm Max.
I'm Chasten.
And I'm Eric.
Good job.
There was
Much
no
tighter,
type of
like,
circle.
much tighter
We're doing
like
a
that.
really good job. I'm really proud of us. Yay. Yeah, so last night, the pod, the four of us, filled up our flasks and headed out into the world.
I had 2.
Eric had 2 flasks because that's just who he is as a person. We headed out and we went to a BDSM community party. And we also host BDSM and sex parties. So, yeah. Do you want me to start asking questions, or should we go ahead and pop a disclaimer on this episode?
Yeah.
Here's a sheet of paper. Disclaimer.
What is this accent that you're doing?
This is B12, baby.
Oh, no. This is a podcast.
This is a podcast.
This is a podcast.
This is a podcast?
That's what we're claiming anyway.
The podcast.
It is a podcast.
You're a podcast.
This is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships, sex and kink, and polyam issues, and whatever else comes up.
While we talk about those things, we'll probably also touch on stuff like abuse and violence and mental health challenges. These can be difficult topics, so keep that in mind moving ahead. Let's see, who do I want to ask? I'm going to ask Hannah this morning. Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Hi. How are you? Hey, are you waking up now?
I'm starting to wake up.
We had
My voice
eggs
isn't waking up yet, but it'll get there.
That's okay. You're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you.
The first time you went to a kinky or sexy party, can you tell us what you were feeling?
I think it was one of the Sunday afternoon parties, which is always closed in the daylight.
And often you walk out in the daylight.
And often you walk out in the daylight, and
Yeah.
it's like, you still have half of a Sunday evening to go. It was all weird because I was going to church in the morning playing piano, and then I would go to a party in the afternoon.
Kind of code switching
Yes,
challenge.
the midday
And if not that, you were
swap.
going to a party on Saturday night and then getting up Sunday morning. And
Yeah.
Exactly.
Going to church?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was actually better for my sleep patterns to do
To a
the
Sunday
early
evening.
afternoon.
So how did you find this party?
I had started seeing drag at that club,
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of knew that it was there, but I was finding parties on FetLife.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
looking for events near me that were open to the public.
And how long have you been on FetLife?
Years,
Okay.
I think.
All right. Cool. All right. Max.
Continue.
Yes.
How did you find your first party?
You and I started going to events through a group that we found through FetLife that was polyam and kink focused, and we started going to their munches, and shortly thereafter went to one of their play parties, which at that time were hosted in a house.
A private residence?
Yeah, private residence. Yeah. And you and I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
No idea how to dress. No idea what was going to happen. It was a nervous-making experience walking through the door for the first time.
It really was. It really was. I remember my first party very well, and I remember standing and facing either you or the wall. When
Mhm.
you left me to go get a drink or what have you, I would turn around and face the wall. Like, I was that level of nervous and didn't know what to expect and didn't want to interact with people.
Mhm.
Even though I knew I had met some of the people before through the munches, but I was very, very nervous. Eric,
Yes.
good morning.
Hi.
Hi. How are you this morning?
I'm okay.
Did you sleep well?
Yeah.
Good. So, your first party. Tell me about your experience.
Well, I'm not sure which one I would consider the first party. Couldn't go to
That wasn't a party. That was more
Right.
of a demo
just a
event.
thing. Yeah,
right.
but for all intents and purposes, that
Well, tell me how you felt walking in the door. Because, okay, so that club, I had to come meet you at the door. How did you feel that night?
there was a bit of nervous anxiety,
Yeah.
but not much because it was also going to a club down that part of town,
Mhm.
which is to me by and large just a silly affair anyway. So that kind of offset some of it.
Okay. So what about your first party here? Because I think that was your first party, correct?
It was.
Okay.
It was. That was a little more anxiety ridden because I don't know, because it wasn't out in public, which is kind of backwards.
It is out. It is, yeah.
But yeah, I guess I just didn't really have any kind of idea what to expect at all, and I didn't know anybody that was here other than you, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a whole lot of, well, hey, this is a bunch of shit I don't know about. But I didn't, stand and face the wall.
It doesn't matter like what kind of party it is. When the host is the only person you know, that is a hard door to walk through, man.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't really have mattered what was going on in the party. That's probably how it would have felt anyway.
Yeah. I think that my party plan has been to invite a group of people to the party with me and make sure it's okay with the hosts and go through the proper vetting processes and all that stuff. But to make sure that I have a group of friends that I know at the party, and either they're people who are new and are checking it out, and so I get to they get to be my baby ducks and I get to be Mama Duck and show them all the things, or it's people that are experienced and have been there before. So I feel like I have a little private party within the party bubble, and it helps me feel less anxious in those environments.
I think you and I were fortunate that those were the first parties that we went to, Chasten, with that particular group in that particular house, because it was a really good atmosphere.
It was a positive atmosphere.
And it was a big group at the time. There were a lot of people. The parties were big. You could kind of get lost in the crowd to a certain degree. And we met, a lot of good friends who were the kind of outgoing party ambassador types, that like grab your hand and show you where the food is and make sure you feel okay about it. Yeah.
I try to be that now when people come to parties. And I got to be that last night. We went to this party. I volunteered, and so I was a greeter for a while, and I've never greeted at a party, oddly enough. That's always the newbie thing that you're supposed to do is to greet, and I hadn't ever done it. It was so much fun. I had so much fun. I'm usually busy doing other stuff. I'm usually hitting people or something.
We have, one of the friends of the house who always volunteers is our greeter.
Like our official greeter, yeah. Does such a great job.
And he does a great job, and it really works out. But we get to pair new people with him to help and guide people the right way. Yeah. And it gives them an opportunity to meet people as they come in. Yeah. And kind of, everybody's nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I really like the idea of mentorship in the party environment, because especially people who are nervous are typically going to function better if they have something to do. So I have a lot of people who volunteer with us that go like, hey, I don't know anybody and I'm new, but I want to come and help. Can I just come help and watch? Yeah, absolutely. You can come help and watch. We always need helping hands.
Yeah. As we're, talking, right now we're talking about going to parties. I think we're probably going to talk about hosting parties later, right?
Yeah.
But as we're talking about going to parties, the parties that are available locally and the events that are a few different kinds.
Yeah.
And we have been to house parties that are mostly kink focused, kink focused play parties, meaning there's going to be some furniture. There's going to be an opportunity.
BDSM furniture.
Yeah. There's going to be an opportunity for different kinds of play.
Right.
There are typically, tops looking to top and bottoms looking for tops to top them.
I think a norm in the Richmond community is there's a play board, a board where you can sign up with what you have to offer.
Yeah, there wasn't one last night. Because that was a different kind of thing.
That was a different environment. Yeah. That was a carnival and more of like a torture garden experience. Right. There's usually a board where you can, put where you're interested in and curious about, and that way people can come find you based on your FET name. So it's still anonymous. Nobody's learning your real name.
But we've also been to house parties that are more
house party like
focused. Well, I was going to say more sex focused.
There's the triumvirate we're working with here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had the more sex focused parties. We have I've been to swinger parties, which are a different thing, and then there are the mostly kink parties, and some kink groups allow sex and some don't. I think most of them do around here now, but that's changed over time. And then there's also a difference between an open party and a closed party and a private party. So, an open party is if you RSVP, you can get in. They'll do whatever vetting they do, but mostly you can just get in. Usually it's you, so long as you know about it and you can get your name on the list, you can go. And then there are the more in-person vetted parties where you need to go to a couple of munches for a group before you get to go to one of their parties.
Or at least have someone who can vouch for you.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the BDSM community and the polyamory community around here in Richmond are very good about self-policing. And then you have your closed, so those are more closed parties because it does require vetting and it requires somebody meet you face-to-face or know you face-to-face for you to be able to come. And then there are the private parties, which are not affiliated with any specific groups. They are just, the person, the host, or somebody who's going and you happen to get invited. But they're like the fun secret parties. And I enjoy that element of them, of the private parties. It's sort of like it's all about who you know. Because I think one of our first private parties was one of those like, oh, well, not everybody gets invited and not everybody gets to go. So it felt exclusive and felt special to get to go. But it turns out it's really just about privacy and protecting people's identities. And it's not really about exclusivity.
Well, and I think that aspect will go also means that you might try to mind your manners a little bit better.
Yes.
That's funny. I always thought of that more in terms of scope. Just how big it is. Sometimes you'll have a private one just because you don't want to have a big shindig.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think parties around here average about 40 people, right? If you took all of the groups, I'm talking about group parties. If you took all of the groups, and when I say groups, I mean community groups or FetLife groups or meetup groups. There are meetup groups too. And you average it out. It's usually you can expect at least 30 to 40 people.
Probably like at a given time because it's a
party.
party.
People flow in and out.
Parties are like parties. Like people do flow in and out.
And some parties do have a set arrive time and you need to get there at a certain time and so forth. But for the most part, you just kind of come and go.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about like going to a party and sort of preparing for a party and, you know, what to bring, what to wear. After you RSVP to a party, just let them know. So for head count mainly. For whatever party it is, typically you'll get the address afterwards. It's not that everybody knows where the parties are all the time. I think it's been our experience that once you RSVP and they go through whatever vetting process, then you get a message, typically on FetLife, with the address. We send emails out to our house affiliates. Okay, so we talked about the fact that all of us pretty much... You're also wearing a hat?
Yeah, it's Hatter Day.
Oh, it's Hatter Day.
All right.
Oh, God damn it. Everybody's got hats on except me and Hannah. That's not really everybody.
That's not at all.
Oliver, do you want to put your hat on, buddy?
Yeah.
Oh, your breath is stinky, doggy. Come lay down. Most of us found parties on FetLife except for Eric, who found parties through me. So that's a way you can also access the community. If you have a friend who identifies as polyamorous or kinky, you know, and they mention a party, etc., you can ask them for information. Don't expect them to give it to you, but you can ask them for information. And they'll typically say, well, I went to FetLife and I clicked on the events tab and then I looked at the events and then I went. Let's talk about what we bring to parties. Max, what do you like to bring to a play party? And when I say play party, I mean sex or kink or whatever. I'm just going to umbrella term it.
They typically have, the ones that we've been to typically are some kind of potluck arrangement. So there's usually an available list of what they're looking for food-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we typically try to bring some of that, whatever's off the list. But as far as
like your personal stuff.
Yeah. I don't take any kind of toys, impact tools, anything like that. I don't do a lot of open play. If I do, it's usually at our parties, not at other people's parties. So the only other thing that I might take, if it is a booze-friendly party, and not all parties are booze-friendly, is, you know, whatever I want to drink for the evening.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's something we should mention too, is that not all parties allow alcohol because it can affect consent. If you're inebriated, your consent is affected, and we want to make sure that everybody's being safe, everybody's playing safely, everybody is aware and enthusiastically consenting to what's going on. And even though having a drink or two might lower your boundaries a little bit, make you feel more comfortable, you can make mistakes in those environments and touch things you're not supposed to or touch people you're not supposed to. So typically drinking, and especially drinking to excess, is discouraged. The party we went to last night, they asked that if you do plan to drink, it's absolutely fine to drink, but please do so after you finish playing and enjoying the offerings. Last night, the party we went to was a kind of a torture garden like thing. It was and then, you know, torture gardens are things they have all over the world. It's basically like a garden of delights. It's you get to sample things. There was some impact. There was some cool furniture there to try out. There were some torture things. There was some more edge play stuff like knives and needles and stuff like that. And you get to sample it in a safe environment and get a little taste of what it's like. So you can ask questions and find out if it's something you like. Hannah, what do you bring to parties?
Been sticking close to home, or at least I have as far as play lately. But I always like to bring a blanket or towel after I play.
So like aftercare items.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Eric, what do you bring to parties?
Usually as little as possible, just because it's things to keep up with.
It's true.
And I don't feel like keeping up with things at a party.
Well, typically you have a flask.
A flask.
Sometimes a change of clothes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes a towel or bathing suit or something. Depending on the party. Okay. So I'm the one who takes the most stuff
Right.
places.
Easily,
Kit
Yeah.
of things that
By
you
far.
often take.
Sometimes I have a suitcase full of implements and things. Sometimes it's just a bag. If I'm taking just a bag, usually it has things like strap-on, chucks pads, wipes, toy cleaner, implements to hit people with, pokey things, sharp things.
But you're not, you don't really carry aftercare items generally.
I don't typically carry an after item. I will take a blanket with me if I know that I'm going to need it. Or I also take blankets or a sheet or something if I know that I'm going to be sexually active at a party. Because even though there are chucks pads, I like to be on a surface that I cleaned. That's a thing for me.
And, you know,
It's
a
also
blanket
being
is a little
considerate
more
of the
comfortable
host.
than a chucks pad.
Exactly.
Right.
Because
A little
you can
less
put chuck pads are like absorbent puppy pads or hospital bed pads, and you can just put them under the blanket.
Right.
And then it is much more comfortable, and you also don't stick to the chucks pad. So I'll take that. I do carry electrolyte powder with me now, either some Pedialyte in the little things so I can just mix it with a cup, or a packet of emergency electrolytes, which doesn't have any sugar in it. I don't typically take snacks with me at all because there's usually food at a party. If there's cheese and some crackers or bread, I'm happy. That's my aftercare. My aftercare for me is typically downtime or quiet time. So I don't really need a lot. But I do take a lot of toys depending on the situation.
Yeah, and your kit is a rolling suitcase bag, like carry-on bag, which is what most people carry. And it's really funny to me that to see like a string of people walking in with their carry-on bags, like, you know, like they're headed to the airport.
Yeah.
But also a lot of impact toys don't fit in them, so there's often like a crop sticking out of the top of
Yeah.
it. And all that's very funny to me to watch.
It's very
We
funny.
have a gravel walk outside that everybody has to come through. So the next morning I always go out and there are like wheel tracks through
From
the
people
gravel.
carrying
and
their stuff.
It kind of
Yeah.
tickles me a little bit.
Yeah, and we have some friends who do chain bondage, and they bring buckets of chain,
Like hundreds of pounds.
hundreds of pounds. Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. But yeah, I mean, some people bring their whole toy collection because they don't know what they want to do, and they just carry the whole thing every time.
Yeah, one rolling bag just ain't enough. They'll have
No, they have like,
and
basically,
even make a couple of trips.
yeah.
I
And
find
I've
that
seen,
entertaining.
Pool cue case, gun cases for all those like longer impact stuff. It's really it's interesting the solutions people work out.
So, what would you suggest to somebody who's never been to a play party before? Let's create this imaginary person who's going to a play party. We will name this person. Let's name this person. What are we going to name them?
Name him Russ.
Russ. Okay. So
Russ.
Russ is our imaginary first time party goer. Let's say he's just like average
Dude going by himself.
solo dude going by himself.
Okay.
Which are, they're probably the people who have the most barriers to entry, because women are more likely to get approved and vetted quickly to go to parties, and so are couples.
For good and bad reasons.
For good and bad reasons, but a solo, it doesn't necessarily need to be single, just need to be alone. A dude by himself, of any creed, religion, or whatever, is going to have problems getting into a party and probably making those connections.
Well, depending on the party. Like you
Depending,
if it's
absolutely.
an open party, then typically not.
Yeah. So
Domly Dom 69 from FetLife is showing, going.
So
to
Russ,
the party.
Domly Don 69, that's probably a name on FetLife, so we probably shouldn't say that.
Right.
So Russ, our imaginary
Fake
person,
name
our
Dom on 60.
fake name
Dom 69.
fake name Dom 69 on FetLife is going to a party for the first time, and Russ has gone to FetLife, found an event, clicked I'm going, and gotten a message with the address and the rules. Now needs to pack a bag of stuff to be prepared. First party, may play, may not. What do you suggest Russ brings?
Observant nature.
Okay. Can you elaborate
Stick
upon
that
that?
in your bag, Russ.
Yeah, stick that in your bag, Russ.
In your rolling luggage.
Yeah, I'd say more than any tangible implements that one should bring, they should bring a proper attitude towards it.
Okay, so a good attitude, a good and open attitude. A knowledge of consent would be something I would throw in that tool bag.
Certainly.
Yeah, a knowledge of consent.
Okay, but let's get back to
Actual stuff. Yeah,
Whatever it is that you need to be comfortable, because if you're showing up and you brought your good attitude that's open-hearted, then what you need is, and nobody's going to judge you for that, and you are not expected to correct gear.
Exactly.
Right. And so we've talked about some stuff that we need to be comfortable in a setting. So really anything. I highly, highly suggest, and I include this anytime I send out invitations or party information, I advise people to bring their aftercare items. You know, you don't know if food at a party is going to be food that you like. Bring a snack. You know, there will typically be water at parties. We're really good in this community about hydration, but it's still always a good idea to bring a water bottle just in case. You can fill it up in the sink. It's also, I think, a really, really good idea to bring some form of electrolyte stuff because your blood sugar can crash after you play, especially if you're playing for a first time and parties are kind of a stressful situation. Mm-hmm. Also a blanket or a towel, because if anything else, you might want to get naked and sit down somewhere. Don't sit on people's furniture with your bare ass. That's gross.
Yeah.
That's nasty. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, if it is your first time, probably don't go overboard. When people are showing up for the first time here, and I know that they're new to community stuff, and they do bring just the whole kit and caboodle,
Mm-hmm.
I really roll my eyes like that. Just pump the brakes there, guy.
Yeah. Don't bring all your toys. And also, don't try to do all the things, and just be chill. Yeah. I mean, I always want people, if you feel like approaching somebody for play, I encourage that. Because if you don't ask, you won't know whether you can play with them. However, don't be obvious and ask every single person of the gender you prefer to play with you. Because then you're being a sleazy pickup artist. Yeah.
So how do we feel about, I'm not talking about your friends, not talking about people you already know, but like scanning because FetLife shows, assuming this is an event that's on FetLife, and FetLife shows who is RSVP'd to go to things. How do we feel about Russ scanning through and seeing who he wants to contact about, hey, would you like to do something with me at this party?
I feel like
cold calling.
I feel like cold calling is perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
Because, and this is why, most events on FetLife will say that if you don't want to RSVP, you can publicly, so that people know you're going, you can always contact the event coordinator and send them a message, and they can privately put you on the RSVP list or the guest list or what have you, or the approved list. And that way your information is not out there on FetLife. If you are RSVPing to an event on FetLife, your profile is there and people can click on your profile and read it, because it is a community and it's designed to be a social networking site. So people are going to socially network with you. I think it is absolutely okay to send somebody a message and say, hey, I see that you're RSVP to this event. I am interested in doing this kind of play. Is this something that you would be interested in? That's acceptable. It is not acceptable to go like, hey, baby.
Submit to me
at this event. I will collar you then and that. Like, that's not cool.
So, as in all things, the message is be respectful and cool about it.
Yes, and honor consent. Ask for permission as opposed to saying, I want to do this to you. No, you don't want to do anything to me. Ew, gross. So, yeah.
Okay.
And I would say, like you were saying, it's going to stand out if you're just going around asking everybody.
Right.
I would say if you are new and you're approaching 20 different people saying, hey, how's it going? What are you into? What are your plans for the night? No problem there.
Right.
If it's, I want to do this thing. Are you into it? How about your friend?
Yeah.
And going around. Like, that's kind of... That's the awkward kind of on-the-spot moment that something like a whiteboard when you show up or a discussion thread on FetLife beforehand can kind of like allow you to advertise what you are bringing to the party.
Yeah,
and that's something
great
we
point.
didn't mention,
Hookup
is that-
threads. Yeah, hookup threads. So hookup threads are basically, they'll have a link to a group post or a writing on a profile somewhere that is a place where you can post what you're looking for. It's basically the online whiteboard. And the hookup threads are where you can scan through and see who's offering what kind of play and who's looking for play. And then you can respond to them either in that post or by a message. The thing that I like about hookup threads is that it does allow you to pre-negotiate play before parties. In our community, pickup play, which is play that you just like jump into at a party and you haven't really talked about it with anybody, you just kind of find somebody and play with them, is not the norm. Typically, people come to parties with a plan in our area. Yeah. They typically come with negotiated scenes and ideas, and the only time that they really engage in any pickup play is if it's more of a sexual environment or it's more of this torture garden experience where it's just kind of a carnival ride.
And it does seem like mostly people play with their own partners.
Yes.
You know, dance with the one that brung you.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yes. Mostly they do. Yeah.
Is it because there's resources? Is it because
Yeah.
atmosphere?
I think often it's, most people don't have in their home, at least not set up in the living. So, yeah, I think that it's access to furniture, it's access to a space,
And it's access to an audience.
and another wrinkle to watch.
Well, I don't think that's a wrinkle. I don't think there's anything wrong with
No,
that.
I didn't. The wrinkle connote
Layer.
Yeah. Layer.
Layer, okay.
Yeah. I think that oftentimes too, sometimes people live in apartment environments or environments where they don't have a lot of privacy, or they live with family, children,
Yeah.
and they don't want to engage in certain kink practices. I mean, sometimes hitting people with stuff can be very loud.
Yeah, if you got a 3-year-old sleeping in the next room, you're probably not
Like
doing a lot of rough body play or
Exactly.
heavy impact play or
Because,
whatever.
spanking can be loud too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I enjoy playing in a party environment because, one, it's an opportunity to play with people I don't usually play with. So even I typically have a partner present, but for me, I like to do a lot of service topping, and that's a way for me to keep my skills fresh. Because if people are coming to me and asking me to play, then that's an opportunity for me to play in a way that is different than my usual stuff with my partner. But if it's just with my partner, usually I stick to more sexual stuff and don't do kinky stuff in a public arena with my partner.
Well, and even for us who have, I'm looking up at the ceiling right now, have the furniture up all the time and available, like none of us go up there when there's not a party going on. And,
No.
so.
There's something magical about the space is a party space.
Yeah.
You only use it for party stuff. The only problem that I see with people who go to parties strictly to play in front of other people is that I think that performative kink can be dangerous. I think that when you're playing to the audience as opposed to playing to the person you're playing with is dangerous because you're not focused on your top or your bottom or whatever is going on in that scene. So.
Yeah, and even though it is a party and people know why they're coming there and what they're coming into, there are consent issues when there's bystander in your scene, making them part of your scene without their active and ongoing consent. Yeah.
I've been involved in a scene and somebody has waved a quiet goodbye to me or given me the quick, are you huggable, like for a quick hug goodbye out. But it's typically in a situation where my bottom is blindfolded and safe and I've checked in and I'm standing near them and it's quiet, so it's not interrupting the scene. It's just a quick thing. Or because I'm the host, sometimes there will be party issues that come up that I'm the only one who's available to deal with it, but I'm also in the middle of a scene, so I have that person I'm responsible for.
Well, I'm actually talking about the other way. I'm talking about if you don't have the ongoing consent of the person who just happens to be standing nearby while you're performing a scene. People do try to engage the crowd and try to bring them into their own
See, that didn't even cross my mind.
This one or that one?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly
Should I let her such and such?
I don't like that. I feel very uncomfortable. That didn't even cross my mind just now because that's really distressing to me, and I don't like that at all.
And I do.
I was just going to say, I think that's a great skill and that there is a place for it.
Yes.
As long as the event is really set up towards performance.
Yes.
Because that requires really consent of everybody in the room.
I would also say that that's just one avenue of performance. That's performance that's audience oriented.
Sure.
There's plenty of other performative things that I've seen that the audience is purely a separated audience.
Like what?
Well, like the rope thing that we went to that one time.
Well, that was a
very
performance.
performative. Yeah, it was very performative, But
it was more like a demo. It was more like people demonstrating their skills in front of a group of people as opposed to...
Which is also performative.
But
without audience participation.
As opposed to a play party.
Yes. What I mean, though, is that a lot of things that I have seen have had that performance aspect to it, but they're not including any observers. And I think that's perfectly fine.
It's like a show.
Yes.
Yeah. We've done shows here. That were specifically designed for there to be an audience and then there to be a scene that the audience is watching, and that's part of the scene, but the audience is not participating. Or if they are, it's in a consented, previously talked about negotiated way. Yeah.
Right, and that's where I'm driving at, is that a lot of the times where it is something that is pre-planned and all of that, it lends itself to that.
Yeah.
Whereas the pickup stuff, that's where you run into the risk of, people not necessarily paying attention to what it is that's going on in the moment because they're trying to make a moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm. Well, I think as somebody who, when I play at parties, I typically have a little bit of an audience. The idea of trying to pull my audience into my scene makes my skin crawl.
Yeah,
and I don't understand that need. But there are times when I'm teaching where that's a completely separate thing because it has to be more of an icebreaker to encourage interaction and so forth. And that's a perfectly acceptable environment. A lot of parties, especially in our area, they will have a demo. They will have somebody demonstrating a skill or talking about a topic or some kind of clothing or fashion related to the lifestyle, etc. And
which is an icebreaker thing.
It is. The whole thing is an
just
icebreaker.
To get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Get somebody naked. Get some play happening.
Now, at our parties, which are private parties with a very vetted guest list, we typically don't have a demo. If we do, it's later in the evening, and it's something that's just a special thing that we're doing. Our icebreaker, we don't really have to have an icebreaker because we have experienced players, and we have. But Russ wouldn't be invited to this party because Russ, our newbie, is he's out there just going to the groups and seeing the sights. Right. What should Russ wear?
There's a lot of parties have a dress code. Some parties don't. The dress code will typically say something along the lines of, fetish wear encouraged.
But do you have to wear fetish wear to a fetish?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, we see maybe half the people that show up at our parties are wearing t-shirts and jeans.
Yeah, I'm usually that guy.
You and I, Chasten, are just people who like to dress.
Yeah, we do.
So we've always worn, at very least for myself, a collared shirt. I usually wear a tie.
I typically almost always wear a dress or lingerie.
But that's just our choice.
Right.
Nobody enforces that.
I mean, there are people who choose to be naked the entire party. That's a great choice as well. Please bring a towel or a blanket to sit on. So basically,
and often there's like a costume element. Parties also.
There are themes sometimes. Yeah. And that can help you decide what to wear. There's typically a very specifically outlined dress code, and our local fetish club has an outlined dress code that's very clear cut. So if you're not sure what to wear to a party, the best answer for that is ask.
Right.
Ask somebody.
I've had people ask me the first time they've come here for stuff, what should I wear? And I always tell them, like, whatever you're comfortable in.
Within the dress code.
Within the dress code, whatever you're comfortable in. But, like, think about what you would wear to a club or a bar. Like, if you were, going out, like, what you would do to
put some effort
dress
into
up
it
a little bit.
Yeah. Our parties, we have a stricter dress code that applies apparently to everybody but Eric. And our dress code is
he wears his nice cargo shorts.
Yeah. Exactly.
Our dress code is typically cocktail attire or fetish or lingerie or leather or naked or nothing at all. But we like people to dress up a little bit because that's a more formal environment, but that is absolutely not required. And if, what if you're coming from work? What if
which we see a lot.
We do see a lot. The thing is, people change. So if you're entering an establishment, one thing to keep an eye out for with dress code stuff is if they tell you it's vanilla to the door or street clothes to the door.
Which it always is.
Which
that's
it
always
always
the rule.
is.
You're not going to walk down the street wearing
but Russ doesn't know this because Russ is a newbie. So
yeah,
that's fair.
So, before Russ puts on his leather chaps, maybe Russ should wear his nice cargo shorts into the party and then change if there's a changing location or change in the bathroom. Right. We provide changing area in our foyer or the foyer for Max. And then there are some parties where we've seen a bedroom that is dedicated to put all your stuff in here, put all your bags. I prefer people put their bags where they're told to, as opposed to carrying their shit everywhere. Yeah.
And people will often sort of try to sneak into the play space
early to
drop their
set
stuff.
Up. Yeah.
And it's
like, no, keep your stuff out of the play space until you're ready to play. Yeah. So I think, important things for new people going to parties is like read the rules and the guidelines of the party you're going to.
And very often you will be handed a set of rules coming through the door, or there will be rules taped to the wall.
Yes.
Or there's going to be
or a copy will be
guidelines.
Messaged to you, or a link, or what have you. What we do is we actually, as part of your RSVP, it is known that you agree to the rules and such. And then for new people, if we do have somebody who's never been here before, we take them into the office and spend some time to go over the rules with them. Right. That's part of our greeter's job.
While we're talking about dress code and talking about the way that people dress for
Yeah.
parties, is this where we talk about the confluence of kink and kilts?
Yes.
Oh yeah, what?
Kink and
Please
kilts and
explain that to
corsets
me.
and tutus.
Yeah, right.
The standard dress code for a kink party, when all else fails, wear like a polo shirt and a kilt. Or if you're a person who would like to feel a little lovelier that evening, wear a corset and a tutu, and you're good to go.
Right.
Although, really, for anyone who owns a kilt, any event
Is an event.
to
wear
for
a kilt too, yeah.
Yes.
This is true.
Weddings, kilt.
And I own 5, so.
Baby shower, kilt.
Kilt.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, I think it's just, I mean, I was kidding, of course, but I really think it's an environment that invites the same sort of person who would own a kilt, is what I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I had never, with mine own eyes, seen people wearing kilts.
You've
before
seen
me.
8 million people wearing kilts
No,
all
yeah,
the time.
now.
Before.
Now.
Oh, now.
Before
Yeah.
meeting you, that was
Oh.
not a thing.
I
Yeah,
brought
and it's
kilts
funny.
into your lives.
It's funny, like, how many conversations there are about kilts. Like, oh, where'd you get that one? What brand is that? Because there are
Mhm.
about 5 brands.
Yeah.
And everybody has the
and
same
we
one.
have friends who actually work with a company and sell kilts.
Yep,
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who has just started sending me photos whenever she sees kilts or like a place where you can buy kilts. Like, your people will understand why this exists.
I have no kilts.
You
when
want to
I
borrow one?
I don't need one.
when I went to Winter Fire,
They have cargo kilts.
they do have
I'm
cargo
sure they
kilts.
do, yeah. Yeah. I do like pockets. I wouldn't want to give up pockets for extra leg freedom.
It's mostly about wang freedom.
Yeah, that extra leg.
Oh, boy.
When I went to Winter
Thanks
Fire,
for that setup.
you're welcome. B12.
They
When
don't
I
call
went
him tripod for no reason.
when I went to Winter Fire, there's an entire floor of the hotel where the event is, where the convention's held, that is for vendors, and they vend between certain hours. And so when I went, this was my one and only Winter Fire experience, friends of mine were actually vending there. And so they were just kind of stuck there all day, like hanging out in their hotel room with all their merch. And and you just so I would go up and say, hey, and go around to all the vendors, but like kilts and leather things and spanky things are the things that you will always be able to find at any kinky convention ever.
Latex.
Oh, sometimes latex, not always.
Well, generally, and I'm thinking of the smaller sale thing that happens at our club here. There's always like the one latex vendor.
Yeah, there's a vendor from Virginia Beach that comes down. Yeah, it has really nice stuff. So wear something that you're comfortable in that falls within the dress code. And if you don't know if what you're wearing falls within the dress code, please ask. I think that's the one thing that we could really, if just society as a whole would just ask more questions, that would be great. Don't
you can
assume.
find something that's in your comfort zone in any of these dress codes. that we're talking
Exactly.
about.
You don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on fetish
pair of
wear.
jeans and a polo shirt will carry you a long way.
Yeah.
And
So
it wouldn't kill you to run an iron over those clothes.
I mean, throw them in the dryer with an ice cube and you're good to go. So Russ, like, what if Russ, is interested in wearing more feminine clothes in that environment? Absolutely
Or knock yourself
encouraged.
out, Russ.
Exactly. Absolutely. So let's make sure that we're not like,
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
We are being gender normative.
yeah, let's not be gender normative because, maybe Russ wants to wear a maid outfit. I've seen cool maids outfits and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have friends who go all out and dress to the nines and wear their like crazy fetish stuff. And then we have
Usually
friends
for 15 minutes. and
usually
then
for
they-
15 minutes and then they change.
Yeah.
And also, we have friends who do, they show up and they've had a long day. They've been taking kids to ball games or whatever. And they show up in like leggings and a shirt or what have you. And it's, we're not going to kick somebody out necessarily for a dress code violation. But if for some reason you can't fall within the dress code, send the hosts a message and just say, hey,
I got to come from work.
here's my
I'm gonna be there
situation.
in
Is this
yeah.
okay? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say okay. But if you just show up and don't say anything to anybody, then you're the asshole. Yeah. We try to, and for our parties, we try to create an environment for everybody to enjoy that seems and feels elevated in some way. So Russ is going to the first party. Russ has a bag packed with flogger and some kind of crop-like thing. a change of clothes, and a towel. And
Okay.
some aftercare items. So Russ has bags packed.
Right.
Russ is getting ready to head to the party that day and is walking in the door for the first time. What can Russ expect to see at, say, a house party?
Typically, as soon as he walks through the door, he's going to see a greeter.
Yeah.
The greeter is going to have a clipboard with a list of maybe FetLife handles on it.
Mhm.
Sometimes your government name.
Mm-hmm.
That person is going to check you off, check you in. Going to give you a set of rules sometimes, maybe point you to the rules on the wall. They're going to tell you where you can drop your bag, where you can drop your potluck item if you have one, and that's it. That's us generally speaking, right?
Yeah. We ask for legal, valid government identification to confirm age and also identity. For vetting purposes, I run some quick background stuff just to make sure that there are no criminal offenses, no sexual offenses, stuff like that, just to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for our guests. Mm-hmm. That does require people provide me their full legal name. So there's a lot of trust there. Russ has a job where Russ can't be outed as kinky or, going to fuck parties. So Russ doesn't what if Russ doesn't want his name out there?
In all things, send a message to the host. If it's a FetLife event, send a Fet message. If it's through some other means like ours, we have a private website that we do stuff for. There's going to be some contact information.
There are a lot of groups on Facebook now. There are a lot of groups arranging things on Facebook.
There's going to be some kind of contact information somewhere that you can send a message to the host about any question you have. That's going to be the overarching answer. Send a message to the host.
What if, Russ has RSVP'd to this party and gotten all excited and ready, and then is not comfortable fulfilling a requirement to attend this party? Is Russ owed entry to this party? So how do we feel about that? This is something that we've experienced a lot of. We have experienced a lot of entitlement to our space and our parties.
Well, especially since we're talking about house parties, we're talking about someone's home.
Right.
Like their private. These aren't public venues. Nobody's required to allow anybody else to enter their home. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter if I don't like your mustache. Nobody is required to allow you to enter their home if they don't want you to.
And if you do enter the home, they are permitted to ask you to leave at any time. Anytime. Yeah.
Whether it's because you have a consent violation, but
right.
Doesn't matter.
Right. And the thing is not to take that personally. And it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're awful or we hate
Isn't
you.
there a book about not taking things personally?
Oh my gosh. I've already mentioned don't make assumptions.
Okay.
I'm just on the 4 agreements every fucking episode. Yeah.
I think sometimes people get confused. It seems so simple whenever you phrase it that way. Like, hey, this is my home and I'm going to bed, so get out.
Right.
Or,
but my friends get to go to this party.
Right.
Why can't I go to this party?
I think we talk about community and we talk about community groups. There's a service and, this is something that everybody should have access to. Mm-hmm. And there's not necessarily the level of discernment about differences between groups and houses.
Exactly. And Russ is new and doesn't know anything about this stuff. So, so that those subtleties and intricacies may not stand out and be clear to us. Yeah. So
hopefully he needs to bring something to Russ's attention. It's done so in a way that is meant to educate, that's meant to inform, not meant to judge and blame somebody new for not understanding the context that they've just walked into. Right. And as long as you're open to that.
Right. So last question. Sometimes there are entry fees or a required donation or an asked for donation or suggested donation for party spaces. What if Russ has had a hard week and just doesn't have the cash right now? Can Russ still go to that party?
Generally, there's, if that's the setup, if there's a ask for donation or a straight out entry fee, generally there's volunteer in some way, take out trash, clean up after, help set up furniture. There's some sort of take the place of that fee or donation. Absolutely. If that's a hardship, or if you would just prefer to,
Yeah, that's fine too.
That's a thing that we offer.
If you're enjoying the Pod Cultcast, check out our podcast show notes at podpodcultcast.com, or keep up with us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook at podpodcultcast, and Instagram at cult_with_a_v. Love us? Rate us on Apple Podcasts, or help us continue to make this podcast possible by becoming a patron. Head to patreon.com/podpodcultcast. Remember, that's cult with a V. Patrons get access to exclusive content like our Cultcast Media Club. This month we're talking about Paris is Burning, the Vagina Bible, and the musician Lizzo. Thank you so much to our patrons, Jenny, Sydney, and Kate.
Took a quick break. We were talking about our imaginary newbie solo dude trying to go out to parties, Russ, and sort of some things that he should, think about in terms of etiquette and stuff like that. One thing that we didn't talk about was what we refer to affectionately as the spiel. Anybody want to give me a rundown on what the spiel is?
Typically at a party, specifically a house party, whoever's hosting it, whether it is the homeowner themselves or the group, when you come in, this was actually what when you come in after the whole greeter thing, usually for the first hour, for the case of our Russ, those guys
hang out on their phones,
lean against the wall and look uncomfortable.
Or they do the opposite and they talk to a whole bunch of people, and this is a very common thing that I've heard from new people is, man, these are like normal people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, so what is usually the way to transition from coming in, getting settled, to the actual party is the spiel.
Which I hate the spiel.
Everybody hates the spiel.
No, I don't think everybody hates the spiel. I think the people who like the spiel are the people who talk during the spiel.
Right.
The people who interact with the spiel giver.
Right. Yeah, so the host...
non-consensually.
The host will stand up and welcome everyone and give a quick rundown of where things are, what's happening, what's available, and sometimes hit the basic rules and remind you of the rack rules. What's the rack rules, Jess?
Rack is risk-aware consensual kink, and rack is basically the idea that that you're engaging in something that is dangerous. Please understand the risks involved in that activity and understand that you're consenting to it.
Right. So we probably have talked about that before, but
there's also the safe, sane, and consensual.
Right.
But kink is not safe. Anything that involves inflicting pain or distress on the body is not safe. There's always the chance that somebody could go into shock. And for anybody out there, new or experienced or wherever you fall on that spectrum, know the signs of shock and know your body signs. Like, think about things like aftercare beforehand. It helped everybody else out.
So they'll run down a few things and then turn everybody loose.
That's what she said.
Exactly.
The spiel heckler.
Spiel heckler.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets turned loose. And oftentimes the play area won't be, quote, open before the spiel.
Yes.
So generally that's when the play area, or at least opens to play.
And I think some things that you should listen out for during the spiel are, where is it okay to play? Where is it not okay to play? Where is it okay to be naked? Where is it not okay to be naked? Sometimes, on our property, we have to restrict all activities either to inside the house or directly behind the house so as not to be naked and kinky in front of our neighbors,
right,
and violate their consent. In some spaces, there is a strictly enforced social area, and then the play space is a separate space. In some spaces, it's kind of mixed in together. My rule of thumb for people who are new, always be quiet in the play area. Always. Don't talk in the play area. Don't hang out there. You might see other people talking and chatting. Don't join in. They're making a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's something we've all done. We'll have a party with pretty low attendance. We'll just kind of hang out. It'll be all people we know. Everybody gets kind of chatty. Everybody's had a beer or two, and we're just kind of hanging out,
Yeah, I'm particularly bad about it, and I know that, and I admit that.
Yeah.
Because, for one thing, I tend to hang out up there in our particular space. Our space is up there.
Right.
So I tend to hang out up there just to,
keep
make
an eye
sure
on
everything's
things.
cool.
Yeah.
And also because I like, being
boobies
around the party, around the play. And yeah, so somebody will come up to me, one of our friends, and we'll
But then you
quiet
get louder
conversation,
and louder
and then somebody else
and
comes
louder.
in.
And then
And then
somebody's
there's-
laughing.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So don't do that. Don't do that. That's bad behavior. If you know us and you've seen us do it, we're not doing the right thing. Don't use our example. Because it's not cool. After the spiel, then play opens, and then there's usually a cutoff time for most parties. Try to wrap up your play before the cutoff time.
Or at least try not to start 15 minutes before.
Yeah, I mean, we've had parties where people have stayed till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's just a huge inconvenience, especially when you have kids or pets that, like, kids are obviously not in the house, but, like, if you had a babysitter or something,
Right.
and you're the host, like, that's tough on you. And also, like, pets, like, my dog doesn't want to stay in the crate all night. Like, there's a time limit on that. So,
Yeah, that's pretty much the limiting factor for us is having the dog in the crate.
Yeah.
As far as time. I mean, other than the fact that, we don't usually want to be up all night.
Yeah.
We have had some ragers.
Absolutely. And we've had a lot of after parties
Yeah, absolutely.
where the party doesn't even get started till the party's over. But, sometimes I think that when it's down to that last couple of people and it's just people kind of helping clean up and stuff, we'll go ahead and let the dog out and the social, we try not to keep the pet out because, like, personally for me, I don't want to be around your pets if I'm naked or in a play space, etc. Like, I'm a germaphobe, and not that your house isn't clean and not that your pets aren't clean, but I don't want, like, people who are petting dogs to then touch my body. That's a harsh thing for me. If it's my dog, like, that's different because those are, like, our germs. I sleep in the bed with my dog.
In our case, we always have a food table, and our dog is a food thief. So
yeah, he'll
that
steal all
doesn't
the
really
food.
work out.
Yeah, so I think that kind of wraps up newbie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of us are newbies at this point, so it's hard to think of things from that perspective. And we had a couple of great questions from our Patreon supporter Jen this morning, and she asked about, being new and what to expect. So she did also have a couple of questions about people who are experienced coming to parties. If you're not necessarily throwing the party, but you are an experienced person in the community, you're experienced in kink, you've been coming out to stuff for a while. As a seasoned party attendee, what's one thing that an experienced person can do to make the host's life easier?
Carry things.
Carry
Take
things?
out trash.
Take out trash. Basically,
Be available.
Let's say, hey,
clean up after yourselves.
Yeah, sure.
I think-
don't leave a footprint.
I think that besides that we try to act as kind of unofficial DMs. Chas, what's a DM?
A DM is a dungeon monitor, and a dungeon monitor is somebody who has gone through some kind of training, typically, or has met with somebody to go over DM guidelines. It's not just any person. And their responsibility is to make sure everyone is safe, that safe words are being honored, and if people have questions or need somebody to watch their scene, to look out for signs of distress or signs of shock, things like that, that's what a DM is for. DMs are typically people who walk around the play spaces and sometimes the social areas. And usually we have what we call party floaters in the social area who handle kitchen stuff and trash and stuff like that. But DMs are basically what they say goes. They are somebody that has been given the power to stop a scene, to pause a scene if they see signs. This is not something that they abuse, but if you have questions, the DM is the person to ask in this play space. Never interrupt a scene. Right. At our parties, we kind of expect our friends to act respectfully and responsibly. And therefore, we don't have floating DMs at our parties. We have point people, which is namely us. You can come ask questions. But otherwise, if you need a DM, you have to let us know. Mm-hmm. We'll provide one. But we don't have floating DMs. We don't do DM shifts. We do for some of our open houses when we have a lot of new people.
So I think that because we are experienced and seasoned and such,
right?
Like when we are at other parties, we just try to keep an eye out so
right.
that we're not going to be the person that puts a pause on a scene.
But we'll go to leadership and say, hey, yeah.
Host.
And I think we do a good job about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there have been more public events that I have gone to, like, hey, this dude's being real aggressive. Just keep an eye on him. Outside of actual play stuff, just to keep an eye.
Yeah, well,
I've
Eric and I DM'd at a convention last year, and that was just basically standing around the play space. And I've DM'd at our local fetish club and also demoed there. And part of my responsibility is to make sure that ownership knows about problems, and that if we see somebody who's acting in a way that could get them in trouble, especially in a club environment where there's a lot of drinking, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. So we want to make sure everybody's being safe in a very crowded space. So we'll definitely, go to the owner and go like, hey, this person's being a problem. How do you want us to handle it? Do you want us to handle it? What are the legalities here? That sort of thing. Yeah. I think that you always, as a party planner, I think it's important to understand what your strategy for removing people from spaces and the premises are. Just having a general idea. Nobody wants anybody to get hurt or feel unsafe in a party environment.
I don't know exactly where you're going with that, but that also went down a path of a lot of policing, and that's not necessarily the role either.
Right.
I look at it as a facilitator. It can be just as simple as, where do you keep this or whatever?
Yeah.
And that's as much of the role as anything else.
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions for DMs are things like, I need a Chuck's pad. Yeah, where can I get some? Or is there a sharps disposal box in the play space? Can I do needle play? I'm thinking about doing wax play. What do I need to put down for that sort of stuff? Like that kind of thing.
And so-and-so.
Yeah, let me introduce you.
Is well known for with that particular skill. Let me introduce you. Or you might want to talk to them sometime.
Yeah.
If they're not there.
Well, and also, and I think, but that also comes down to familiarity. One of the things that I think is important in the party environment, especially if you're an experienced person, you probably know people's real names, but the newbies who are around you don't, and maybe that's not something that people want them to know. So make sure you're using FET names. Make sure you're maintaining confidentiality and discretion in the party environment. We're all just learning and growing. We all make mistakes all the time. The point is that recognizing when we do and making effort to correct it. It's kind of my test to weed out if people actually need to be in my party environment is, can they follow the basic instructions for things like RSVPs and for dress code and stuff like that? Where to park? Are they asking me questions if they don't know, or are they just going like, well, I didn't know, so I just decided to park in the middle of your lawn, that kind of thing. Right. People who follow instructions are people that I don't think it's bad to follow instructions. I think it's respectful to follow instructions. If you're coming to somebody's home or you're coming to a place of business, you make sure you're honoring those guidelines. So if I can't trust you to fill out a form and request your guest appropriately, how can I trust you to honor somebody's consent in my environment? Like little problems can lead to bigger problems. So I'm a big stickler for that. So that's my personal little nitpicky thing.
Do we have more questions, or?
The next question is, what should I do if I see someone doing something really cool and I get super excited and I want to do that thing to or with that person?
Wait till they're done. Primary thing, wait till they're done. Can approach them or to a DM.
Yeah, I usually suggest that people go to the DMs and ask the DM to kind of make that introduction, because like Eric said, they're facilitators. Yeah. I prefer that to approaching somebody after they might be done with aftercare, because we have a lot of aftercare interruption incidents, and aftercare is not a very it's not a visibly clear thing. Everybody's aftercare looks different, and it is. Like, because you might see somebody chatting with their friends after they've done a scene and think it's okay to chat with them, but they're still in that headspace, and they're talking to people that are safe for them and that are their like aftercare buddies. So I think, always ask, of course, but I think it's better to go to a DM and say, hey, like, I'm interested in that and this person, how can I get connected with them, and go from there.
And often people have a full dance card, so it might, don't get your feelings hurt. Like, be prepared to say, hey, maybe it'll be next time around. We can do this thing. We can plan on doing it in the future.
Yeah, I have physical limitations, and there's a point in the evening where I hit a wall and I cannot and safely play with others anymore. And I have to tell people, like, I'm sorry, I just can't get to you tonight. And I think they do get disappointed. But it's not about them. It's me taking care of myself and making sure that anybody I play with is safe. So don't take it personally. Hannah, throw me your play party knowledge. What are your play party tips, tricks, secrets? How do you have a successful play party or make it happen for yourself and others?
I personally need time to prepare and be in a good mindset.
Ooh, good one. Mm-hmm.
And that's true whether I'm getting enjoy something that someone else has like lovingly crafted for me, or if we're hosting and space beforehand, to be in my party mindset, to feel like I'm physically rested so that I'm going in, putting my best foot forward, less likely to take things personally or to mess something up. You know, when we're here, I need to, you know, go away from the party planning space and be quiet for a while so that I can come back.
Right.
And that's something
Yeah, I think we all do. I think we all do a pretty decent job of making sure on party day that we get stuff done in the morning, and then we just take that time to breathe. And sometimes we'll have people who are doing a special thing like photo booth or demoing or what have you, and they'll need to come early and set up, but we still take that time to be in separate spaces. You know, we'll let the dog run around and they'll come hang out. I'm a big proponent of the party nap. Like, I have to have a nap. You've just heard the Pod Cultcast with your hosts Max, Hannah, Chasten, and Eric. Our theme music is Spencer Blues by Lobo Loco. Our break music is Gabbarino from YouTube. Subscribe and review on iTunes, or check us out on your favorite player. Visit our website at www.podcultcast.com to find all of our show notes and follow us on social media. Thank you so much for listening.